I'm going to pull the PTO shaft and the hydraulic pump and rebuild it. I haven't done any troubleshooting, but I also haven't had this apart. Oh, it looks like I got the brown sugar and cinnamon version. I did do a painfully long flushing out process. I was thinking that maybe I would get lucky and the hydraulics would work on this tractor. Time to deep clean and rebuild it. I think I discovered why it's not working. Do you see what I see? The inlet valve is seized. Okay, it actually seems like both valves are seized. Let's see what comes out of these chambers. They never take these out in the other videos. There's gonna be some dirt on and under them. Sometimes I watch the other rebuild videos just to see what else there is to learn. Some of these guys are hacks. I was just watching one from a major supplier that said, oh, you can just hammer on these pipe plugs to pop these off. Or if you need to, grab a big screwdriver and pry in between the cast iron and the aluminum. No, don't do that. There's plenty of meat to hit against back here and here to pop those off. Why would you hammer against the pipe plug? Oops. That should come out of there. Need to remove that cotter pin to get that guy out. There we go. That one has the little clip. I've seen a couple others that don't. Several turns of it are broken. Now I should be able to tap that valve out. There have been a few spots of some dark discoloration. I've just been kind of touching it up with Scotch-Brite. You can't really feel it, but I'm just polishing it a little bit anyway. Yeah, I can't feel any of that. Most of this cam is pretty good, but there's some pitting. Try to polish some of it. Overall, not too bad. Broken spring, compromised cap, couple stuck pistons that are now free, some pitting on the cam. I'm thinking these oil grooves on these sliders acted like water grooves, and as it sat, that just ate away at that cam. That feels good. Both of those feel pretty good. So the hunt was on to find a source of these. They're not listed on any of the 8N parts websites. I've seen some hardware sites call them like a spring cap. It turns out they're called a hole cap. The mom and pop hardware store had some, but none in the size I needed, of course. The chain hardware store had some in the size I needed, and I found some on Amazon that were slightly cheaper. Hole plugs. Let's see if 3/8 was the right size. Oh, God. Well, I guess 3/8 wasn't the right size. I guess they're 7/16. You know, it says for holes that are size 3/8. Let me measure this. The last one I measured was 3/8. This one is supposed to be for 3/8 holes. Measuring 320. 435 OD. 525. For a 3/8 hole. And they're smaller than 3/8. Great. The hunt continues. Okay, so now the 7/16 hole plugs have arrived. I think I can already tell that these won't fit either. And that is 660. I'm not going to do any more of this online shopping stuff where I can't physically measure the part beforehand. All right, so new development. My brother found this one on the floor under a box of random stuff that he bought. It has an H on it, presumably for hot, but maybe for hydraulic pump. Moment of truth. Beautiful. And that's another hydraulic pump rebuilt. It's going to be getting dark soon, so I'm going to continue installing this. The only trick to watch out for is to generally take off the inspection cover and guide the rod into this hole. I've done it on another video that you can watch, but it's just a matter of reaching in and guiding this in before you tighten down all these. And while I'm about to take this off, I've noticed that my dipstick is broken. It's that rod that you have to guide into that hole. See how they're not lined up? The cover is noticeably bent at each bolt hole. This is the top hole. It had the biggest burr around it. I feel like that would let a bunch of water in, so I'm smoothing it out. It feels pretty good, but I'll clean it out. Uh-oh, a TO part number. I was kind of thinking this had slightly different features than the 8-in flanges I was looking at. Probably explains it. HF, Harry Ferguson, I don't know. This tractor starts right up, runs great, almost fully functional, except it doesn't have the 3-point lift, which is one of the main reasons to have a tractor. I thought it might be blown rings on the piston on the top lid, but everything looks good there. And in fact, it looks like it already has the Jubilee style piston and ring. So I was playing around down near the pump and noticed something that you should be able to see when I start it up. Notice how it's all spraying down at the bottom of that tube that direction. I believe that this tube is split, probably from water and freezing and whatnot. There was some water in this again. I unfortunately had to leave it outside, and then it rained. I did have it covered up, but it's not perfect, so I don't mind leaking a bunch of the watery stuff out. I'm going to drain it anyway. There's your problem. I think the bottom part of it is like an inch or so of a flared, like maybe 20 thou bigger. I know that eventually I'll have to Dremel off the end of it. So I have a replacement pipe, made in USA. How long does the pipe need to be? 14 5/16. So if I make it 14 1/4, it should be good. ID of the pipe is 420. ID of the hole in the casting on top, 510. So I guess it's like a 45 thou wall thickness on that. I wonder if I drove that pipe out the wrong direction. I should have measured these before I even started. Maybe I would have saved a few minutes of tapping. Yeah, it looks like the bottom is the tighter fit. If I had driven it up from the bottom, maybe it would have come easier. You just lay on your back and hammer up? I don't know. So what I've done is push it out maybe a 1/4 inch on either end and kind of flared both ends. Tap it one direction then the other. So it's kind of flared into place. Now that I know how to do it or how not to do it, I would do this differently in the future. And if this ends up not working, if that flare ends up bleeding down pressure, then I could just try it another way. It's been a while since I've looked at this top lid. I know that like that pin is worn almost all the way through. There was something missing on the end of this. I don't know, little odds and ends that are problems, but it seems like that might be a real problem. The throw for the connecting rod for the piston seems to have been broken off and repaired and brazed up. I might look at another parts tractor's top lid and see if it's any better. I got this tractor for 150 bucks. I think you can see why. I believe the engine is seized. Haven't dug in yet. But I'm not using this tractor, and I might pull off that top lid and see how it looks. I haven't yet got this to disconnect. Looks like everything's here. I can see what I'm missing in the other top lid. I don't know if I want to steal it off of this or just take this whole lid. Well, look at this. Down at the base of the yoke part, it's all cracked. So maybe this top lid isn't much better than the other one. That's how it looks down inside. Looks pretty good. At least one valve is stuck, if not both. I'm surprised how much rust has just like settled on the bottom of this aluminum housing. I just picked up another pair of 8Ns. This one's more complete than the other. I'm probably going to borrow this top lid. I just got it loose. I'm wondering how bad it's going to look when I pull this off. So not great. Not terrible though, it's all complete. It's pretty dirty. When I drained the fluid, what was in there was just water. I have a hunch that this thing's been flooded a time or two, but I don't know for sure. That's interesting. I don't know what is going on with this welded shaft here. More sloppy than rusty. I was expecting a lot more rust. So yeah, this pin has a little bit of flat to it. I'm probably going to pull that piston and cylinder and just use the one off my other top lid. The connecting rod in this new to me one is kind of pitted and bent, and this end is all messed up for some reason. So the connecting rod out of the one I'm replacing is actually like almost new. Oh, I guess there's somewhere, but I'm going to use this one instead. All right, I buttoned it all up and it should be good to go. This tractor normally starts up and runs pretty good. Let's see if it'll run on this year-old gas, and let's see if the 3-point will work for the first time. think I'll go for something heavy. Oh yeah, first time in way too long. I had to add the knob. Oh yeah, holy moly. I rewatched the video of getting this 1950 driving, and when I rebuilt the right rear axle, I mentioned that I don't need to pack that axle bearing because it gets lubricated from the rear end. And then I contradicted myself by putting the inner seal in. Yes, it has an inner seal. It doesn't get lubricated. The earlier ones do get lubricated because they don't have that seal. So now I have to pull all of this back apart to grease that bearing. At least all the fasteners will be loose. I don't think I'm going to film the whole disassembly. I might time myself though and see how long it takes. Yep, I'm going to have to redo these seals. At least I have a bunch and I don't have to wait a while. Axle out in 13 minutes, and that included looking for a couple lost tools. Not bad. Scraping off fresh gaskets. This time I've packed that bearing. Well, I was trying to see what I could get away with on the original brake shoes and drum. The drum is a little too pitted and rusty. It's just turning the brake material into a dust, and part of that one broke off. So I'm just going to replace the shoes with new ones and the drum with a used good one. This is the key supplied with that nut, and that T cross section makes it impossible to install in my application. Maybe it'd work somewhere else, but it doesn't work for me. Of course, it didn't come with any instructions, but I found some random website and it said simply grind away what you don't need. Okay, I will simply do that. It was a little tricky to hold, but there it is, a modified locking piece. It sits down in there in one of the grooves on the axle to hold that nut in place. You just turn the outer nut on it and it kind of tightens down into it, so I think that'll work. Time to install that little keeper. I got this nut about as tight as I want to go. That leaves it, and it just so happens that now the keeper's on the bottom. Shouldn't be a big deal once I get this started. I feel like that's about as tight as I want to go on that for now. Keep an eye on it. New shoes. This one's a little more smooth inside. Helps to turn the key on. Last time I drove the tractor, it was running great. This time when I started it up, it was running terribly. So, checked the carb. It was still clean. Blew it out anyway. I rigged up a second fuel tank in case the first one had some dirt in it. Didn't really help. I checked compression, which was good. I adjusted the points gap. I found a bad rotor, so I replaced the cap and the rotor. And all of that still has not affected anything. I also took off the exhaust pipe in case it was clogged up. I took off the air pipe. Every single time, it was basically exactly the same. It's just running really rough. When I first got this tractor running, this area was filled with ants. Maybe there's a bunch of ant corpses. Let's see if that did anything. Seems like it worked.